Hi, everyone. I'm Dave, and you are listening to my podcast, The Reaction Shot. Listen as each episode will showcase a movie that I love being introduced to a friend of mine that has never seen it. We will discuss, dissect, and review each film from pre to post-production, as well as its legacy. Will we see eye to eye, or is our scope of viewing a little different? Thanks for hitting play, because now you're about to find out. Fade in. Hey everybody, welcome back to The Reaction Shot. Here we are with episode 3. Today we are going to focus on the 2002 psychological tech horror mystery film, The Ring. Joining me today is, surprise, my friend Lauren Drake. Hi Lauren, how are you?
How are you, Dave?
Hey, I'm doing well. Thanks for doing yet another podcast episode with me.
I'm so excited to talk about this movie.
Good.
Terrified,
Terrified.
but excited.
Yeah, for anyone who hasn't listened yet or doesn't know Lauren personally, she is not a big fan of horror films. I think we can easily say that they scare you, correct?
That would be an understatement.
Okay,
Yes,
okay.
Dave.
Fair. So our first episode we did Scream, which obviously is a horror film. I introduced Scream to Lauren as kind of as I labeled it, a gateway film into horror movies. It's a serious movie, but there's a lot of comedic undertone to it as well. Very like tongue-in-cheek type humor. And then we did Jawbreaker, which obviously is a dark comedy, not even really focused on horror really in any aspect. So I sent Lauren a list of a bunch of movies I really want to talk about. I had her pick a couple, and we decided to do The Ring. So a little bit about The Ring. It's a remake of a 1998 Japanese horror film, which was also actually based on a novel written by, I'm probably going to butcher this name, Koji Suzuki. He wrote the book in 1991. And then in 1995, they made a made-for-television movie in Japan based on the first book, which is titled Ring.
Watch that now.
Oh yeah, I mean,
have you seen it?
So I have not seen the 1995 TV movie, but I did see the 1998 movie Ring, which is what this movie is pretty much like the source materials from. So it was titled Ring. In Japan, it's Ringu. I believe that's how you say it. I actually did watch it. I bought the DVD from a store back in 2002, 2003 when the movie came out, because I wanted to see what the original one was like. Of course, it's subtitled and everything. It's definitely creepy. I mean, I think Japanese horror films, especially at the time, really dove into some crazy ghost lore, which we'll definitely talk about throughout this podcast, I'm sure. But interesting enough, in my research for this, I discovered that there is actually 14 Ring movies.
What?
Yeah, and only 3 of them are American. All the rest are Japanese versions, and it's based off of the novel, which also spawned a couple of sequels, which they also turned into films. And much like some long surviving horror films, sometimes they kind of jump timelines. I think the most recent Japanese Ring movie was actually a prequel to the original Ring, so it's actually the first of the series, and it tells the story fully about Samara's background and things like that. So
I see that.
Yeah, we'll have a whole Japanese horror party.
Yeah, I'm in.
Perfect. Cool. So the background of The Ring here, like I said, it came out in 2002 during the month of October. I actually saw this movie opening night at the movie theater. I was 14 years old. There was a lot of buzz about this movie. Essentially the 80s and 90s horror films really focused on like the slasher subgenre and really jumped into a lot of gore, a lot of violence, things like that. So in 2002, with The Ring coming out, it was kind of like a breath of fresh air for the horror film world because it was something new. I feel like people were getting kind of sick of, as much as we love Scream and stuff, that started that whole subgenre just kind of blew up. So The Ring was something new, and I think people were very excited about it. It actually did $15 million dollars its opening weekend, and it actually went on to gross $249 million dollars at the box office. So, with inflation in today's numbers, I mean, we're definitely talking like superhero movie numbers. And
Wow. That's crazy.
yeah, and it actually held the record for highest grossing horror movie remake up until 2017's It remake. So,
Oh,
yeah.
another movie I haven't seen.
Oh boy, we could really dive into that one too. Um, and compared to
Uh,
The Ring's $249 million box office, it made $702 million. So, those are definitely two of the biggest horror movie remakes of all time. So it's pretty cool that The Ring is,
what
that.
crazy. I knew like we're like the same age, so I mean it was popular obviously when we were in high school, but I didn't realize it like had such an impact like that.
Yeah, it's crazy. The marketing for the movie, I don't remember a lot of this firsthand, but in doing research, I actually found it pretty cool that, in 2002, technology, the internet, all that stuff was definitely blowing up, but it obviously wasn't where it's at today. Smartphones weren't exactly what they are today either. Um, so they
Mm.
actually relied on marketing. They had blank tapes that they sent to movie theaters, and on those blank
Oh
tapes was
God.
the actual little Ring film that they watched throughout the movie. And they would put them on people's cars in the movie theater. So people would just like walk out of the theater or walk out of the mall, and they would see a random blank tape sitting on their car. Right? You know,
Oh God.
you know,
No, thank you.
yeah, I actually, when I heard that, I was like, Lauren would be mortified.
I would cry and then die.
Cry and then die. It would be 7 days, though, that you would die for sure.
But it would be 7 days later.
Or you'd be like, nope, I'm not even waiting 7 days. Hey, I'm out.
I'm out.
I'm done. I'm done with this.
That's terrifying.
Yeah. So I wasn't familiar with any of that. I'm sure that was probably like in major cities, maybe like LA, New York City, things like that.
Yeah.
But I think that's pretty cool marketing, especially for that time. And something that I was familiar with was they actually on late night television, on certain channels, they would actually, instead of like showing TV spots and trailers for the movie, they would literally show the Ring video on television. And it
Wow.
would just,
You remember this?
I do. I actually do remember that. I don't remember like I don't remember if it was just like randomly like in commercials or if like certain like maybe talk shows or something had them as like that, but yeah, they were shown on TV. I don't even know if it said like The Ring coming to theaters or anything like that.
Yeah.
So there's definitely a lot of word of mouth for the movie and then the trailers, whatever. But I remember being in the movie theater. It had to have been sold out. I mean, I remember there being tons of people in there, and I just remember people screaming. Like, there's certain big jump scares. A lot of, I remember really loud shrieks from girls in the room, and I loved the energy of the room. Not to sound some
Mhm.
type of way, but I don't really react that way to scary movies. But I love when other people around me do. I'm just like, yeah, scare them, get them. So,
Oh
so
boy.
what's your history with the Ring? Was this your first time watching it?
No, actually, I saw it in high school just like you, not opening day. From what I remember sitting in one of the very back rows with literally my hands over my
Sounds about
face
right.
the entire time. And I remember uh like later that night being like, nope, I'm not sleeping. I'm like, called my sister. I'm like, Claire, come in. I can't sleep.
Oh, your poor
So,
sister.
yeah, no, yeah. I was terrified of a lot of things growing up, and this movie, it took me 7 days,
7 days
like,
to survive
to
it.
be able to, like, have a good night's sleep.
That's so funny. Well,
Yeah.
well, hey, I mean, you conquered your fear, and now you got to actually watch it. Did you keep your hands covered the whole time this time, or?
I didn't, and I will say, like, I didn't remember a single thing about this
Okay,
movie except obviously the ending iconic one of the ending iconic scenes, which I'm sure we'll talk about
for
later.
sure.
So, I that's the only thing I remembered about this movie. I didn't remember the story at all. It was like I was going into it blind.
Awesome.
So,
Well, cool. I love that you decided to conquer your fear and face Samara face head on again. Um,
yes, thanks,
yeah,
Dave, for that.
you're welcome. Has it been 7 days since we talked about doing this podcast? Like, is today the seventh
Wait,
day?
has it?
I think so. Yeah, because
Oh, wow.
I remember when I posted after we decided to do the ring, I posted something on Instagram that maybe 5 people saw that we were gonna do.
Mhm.
That we're gonna do this episode, and I said in 7 days it'll be yours because I was like, oh, if I post it before midnight on Thursday, it'll be seven
Mm.
full days. So yeah. Well,
Aren't you crafty?
oh, so crafty. Well, it's funny. I had to text you yesterday. I'll tell everybody too. But I was at work and I had one of those like Mio energy drink flavors in my drink, and it's like a bright red, whatever. I think it was a cherry flavor, and I got busy, so my cup was just sitting on the table. And after like an hour, I came back to it, and when I picked it up, the condensation formed a perfect ring for the bottom of the cup, and it was bright red and it was like embedded into the
Like,
table. And I had to send it to you just to be like, this is weird. And then
this
yeah, and
happens.
then I had to fly in my house yesterday. It just let me kill it. Like I got close to it. It didn't try to fly away. So basically, I think Samara's trying to tell me something. So we'll see how tonight goes.
She might be.
Yeah.
My cat's going insane right now. I don't know if you can hear
Yeah.
this.
What? She's listening to what we're talking about. Yeah.
Literally.
It's like, nope, don't want any part of that. Cool. Okay, so The Ring was directed by Gore Verbinski. He was a punk rock guitarist as a teenager.
Oh.
Yeah, he did like a bunch of tours and he made music videos with his band. And he decided to sell his guitar and buy a camera and start filming
Hmm.
things. And his first major directorial debut was the Frogs Budweiser commercial.
Oh,
Do you
God.
remember that?
I do, yes.
Like how iconic. Like from my childhood, I think that was back in what, like 95 or something. Um,
You're gonna do an impression of the frogs now?
I probably shouldn't, but Budweiser, right?
But what?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Phew. Well, I did that. So I thought that was pretty cool. I actually had no idea about that, and yeah, I feel like that was kind of a pop culture staple, especially for that time period. And I think
Mhm.
people our age obviously remember that commercial pretty well. So I was like,
Yeah.
oh, that's cool. He also directed the movie Mouse Hunt back in the 90s, and he did The Mexican with Julia Roberts and Brad Pitt. And then he came on to do The Ring. And
Mhm.
The Ring obviously was a huge success, and he actually went on to direct the trilogy of Pirates of the Caribbean.
Swap, he did?
Yeah,
That's awesome.
yeah. So, he's done part of that franchise. The film was written by Aaron Kruger, who, a connection to our first podcast, he wrote Scream 3, actually. So,
Oh.
Kevin Williamson wrote Scream 1 and 2, and then Kevin Williamson was insanely popular at the time. So, Aaron Kruger was picked to write the screenplay for Scream 3. He also did the movie Reindeer Games, and more notably, after the success of The Ring, he did The Ring 2, and more recently did the Dumbo live action remake for Disney. And he was nominated for an Academy Award for his writing of Top Gun Maverick. Yeah.
Nice.
Two other things I want to mention really fast before the cast is the composer Hans Zimmer. I know that name really well from the movie Hannibal. Uh, I
Okay.
used to love that movie, and I always thought the music was really creepy. And I also really thought that The Ring's music was creepy. Um,
It's very creepy.
yeah.
Yeah.
So I definitely want to call him out. He's done tons of things, including like Christopher Nolan's Batman trilogy. He did The Lion King, Gladiator, Thelma and Louise. Yeah.
Yeah, the name sounds super familiar.
Yeah, he has a big hand in, I don't know if fully does the music, but I know he's a part of the music department for The Simpsons. Yeah, I mean, he does a lot of big budget movies, so his name's definitely out there, especially on a lot of big projects. So
Mhm.
love that. And I also want to note the cinematographer, Bohan Bazelli. I mean, I think we can definitely talk about in a little bit the cinematography for this film, the
Mm,
color scheme, all of those things.
yeah.
Pretty cool. But one of his first jobs were the horror movie Pumpkinhead, which I'm gonna assume you've never seen.
But I've never seen
Yeah,
it.
perfect. I'll be honest with you, I'm not a really big fan, so I don't think I'll ever recommend it to you. So,
But you've seen
but he
it.
also more notably did Mariah Carey. I did. I was definitely way younger, so I mean,
Mm-hmm.
I guess my opinion is not super valid because I was so young when I saw it, but it just didn't really interest me. And like even nowadays, just seeing like promos for it and stuff, kind of
Does
have
the
no
villain
interest.
literally have a pumpkin head?
Yeah,
Okay.
yeah,
All right.
it's interesting.
Interesting, interesting, interesting.
Yeah, but oddly enough, he did Pumpkinhead, but he also did two Mariah Carey music videos, including Vision of Love.
Okay.
So
Wow.
pretty random. He ended up doing Mr. and Mrs. Smith, Hairspray, and Burlesque as well. So
Kind of a wide range there.
yeah, I definitely feel he's all about color schemes. I feel like musicals
Yeah.
usually tap into those bright colors and things too. So I guess he was pretty good for that. And then getting into the cast, of course, we have Naomi Watts. She plays Rachel. She was kind of unknown, not unknown at the time, but she had very small roles. She wasn't like the household name that she is now. The Ring actually really put her on the map. She was in a really successful independent film that came out right before The Ring, which was called Mulholland Drive. It's a really twisted independent film, kind of a mind fuck, if you will. Kind of
Mhm.
it's a good movie. I would definitely recommend that one too. It's been a long time since I've watched it, but it's pretty good. Martin Henderson plays Noah. He wasn't really known at the time except for this movie called Wind Talkers, but he ended up doing some more horror films after this, including The Strangers 2 and more recently the horror movie X. Uh, Most interesting with this cast, which I didn't know this, I found this out through my research for this. David Dorfman, who plays Aiden, he had a couple
Mhm.
small roles in movies. He did a movie with Nev Campbell and William H. Macy called Panic. He did a romantic movie that I think you would love with Ben Affleck and Gwyneth Paltrow called Bounce. And then
Yeah.
he went on to do Texas Chainsaw Massacre remake, The Ring 2. However, interestingly enough, he stopped doing movies in 2010. He ended up going to Harvard Law, and he is now an
Wow.
attorney. Uh,
Okay.
but also he is currently in the U.S. House of Representatives, serving as legislative director and general counsel to the Energy and Commerce Committee, vice chair of Homeland Security. Like what?
Well, the little creepy kid.
The little creepy kid now is just making sure we're safe.
Yeah.
Um, I knew that he quit Hollywood. I knew he became an attorney, but to know that he's doing all of that right now is pretty
It's
wild.
creepy.
Yeah, so good
Yeah.
for him.
Also, I want to point out that Noah is Jack from Virgin River.
Ladies and gentlemen, this is Lauren's contribution to the cast here. I actually did see that, but I've never watched the show. Do you recommend it?
Not sure if it's your cup of
Okay.
tea, but it's like a cute little, it's a cute little show about a cute little town and all the drama that happens
Well,
there.
this
I mean, I watched it, so
well, good. Did you know he was in the ring?
I had no idea. Actually, I was talking to both of our friend Courtney about the next movie we were doing, and she's like, "Oh, the guy from Virgin River is in that."
Perfect. Like, oh, great connection. Well,
Yeah.
hopefully he sticks around a little longer than he does in this movie.
Yes. Yeah.
Um, Rounding out the cast, notably is Brian Cox, who plays a Richard Morgan. He has 236 acting credits to his name.
Yeah, he looks familiar.
Insane. He's literally so prior to The Ring, he was in Born Identity, The Rookie, Super Troopers, For the Love of the Game, The Corruptor, Rushmore, Kiss the Girls, Braveheart. Um,
Mhm.
he actually played the original version of Hannibal Lecter in the movie Mindhunter that came right before Silence of the Lambs.
Are those movies connected?
Um, no. Uh,
No.
Mindhunter is actually the same story as one of the other Hannibal Lecter movies. They ended up redoing it. So obviously Anthony Hopkins took over the role after Mindhunter. Um, but Brian Cox recently, and probably for today's world and pop culture, he's most noted for Logan Roy in HBO Succession. So
Okay.
yeah, great actor. And honestly, when I rewatched it this time, I didn't even realize it was him because I'm just so used to
Mhm.
seeing him with like thick white facial hair. And after I watched the movie, I told Zach, I'm like, did you know that was him? And Zach was like, yeah, of course. And I was like, I literally had no idea. But watching it again, I was like, oh, it's definitely him. I don't even know how I didn't notice. But
Yeah.
Amber Tamblyn plays Katie from the opening scene, and Rachel Bella plays Becca. We also have Shannon Cochran, who plays Anna Morgan. She was basically just a small role woman doing TV shows such as Gilmore Girls, Touched by an Angel, ER, Saved by the Bell, and Full House. And then rounding out the cast, we have Davy Chase, who plays Samara. Prior to her being in the ring, she actually did the voice for Lilo in Lilo and Stitch. Yeah, and then to my surprise, I had no idea, or if I did know this, I totally forgot about it. But she actually plays Samantha Darko, Donnie's sister, in Donnie Darko. So
That is a fun fact from a movie I've never seen before.
there you go. Yeah, that was actually on the list. I think one of the movies you said you wanted to watch. So
I
yeah,
do. I do really wanna see that movie. All my friends in high school talked about that
perfect.
movie, so
Well, hey,
I need
whenever you watch it, we'll be able to. Sorry, something's happening. Can you hear me?
I can hear you.
Okay, perfect. Okay, we're gonna obviously cut that part out. But yeah, I definitely think that you should check Donnie Darko out. Obviously, it's one of my favorite movies. We all know that. But I didn't realize that was her, so it's kind of cool to see her connected to these two movies. Yeah, cool. So that's our cast. That's our background of this film, and I guess now we can really start getting into all the nitty gritty
Yeah.
stuff.
Oh, also Amber Tamblyn of Sisterhood of the Traveling
Oh
Pants
yes,
fame.
can't forget that. I'll give you that one for
Can't
sure.
forget. Thank
You're
you.
welcome. Yeah, she's actually a really good actress, and
She
we'll talk
is.
soon about this opening scene. But yeah, she was a great choice for that role for sure.
Mhm.
All right, Lauren. We watched this movie. You watched it twice, three times if you count in between your fingers. What what is this movie about for people who haven't seen it?
So, basically, this movie is about this woman, Rachel, who is a journalist, and her niece passes away under mysterious circumstances. So her sister asks her to investigate the death of her, and turns out three of her friends who also passed away on the same night at 10 p.m.
Creepy.
Creepy. And this is all after which Rachel discovers after them watching I would call a terrifying tape.
Indeed.
Rachel then finds this tape, watches it, and gets a little phone call that she has 7 days. So basically, this movie takes us through the 7 days for her to solve this mystery and to not die. Basically, goals, yeah. So she enlists the help of her, I would say, creepy son.
Hmm.
Creepy son. Always a creepy child in horror movies. This time there are two creepy children.
You're not wrong.
Yeah. And her ex, Noah. And that kind of just leads them on this little hunt to find the mystery of this tape.
Hmm.
They find the girl. They find the girl. They find her mother and the father. And it's all connected.
It's all connected.
And when they think they have solved this case, they haven't.
They have it. Uh,
They haven't.
talk about endings.
Endings and the creepiest line of the whole movie at the end.
What's that?
Gosh, I actually back of my notes. It's Aiden, and he says, "She never sleeps. Don't you understand, Rachel? She never sleeps."
That's when he has like a little nosebleed too, right? It's just
Yep, the nosebleeds is a trend.
yeah. I
Yes,
said,
Noah had one. She had one.
wonder what day that is. Is it the fifth day I get the nosebleed?
Wait, did I not notice this?
I,
Did they all get it the fifth
I'm
day?
pretty sure. I'm pretty sure I may be wrong, but they definitely. I feel like because if Noah was a day behind Rachel, I
Yeah.
feel like yeah, that might have been a thing. If not, that's something we can just add to the lore just for fun.
How many days behind is Aiden from Rachel?
I think three. I think they were each a day
Three
apart.
days?
Yeah.
Yeah.
So lucky kids. So Lauren, if you heard the urban legend of a mysterious videotape that could possibly kill you, would you have watched it like Rachel did?
Fuck no. Stay as far away from that tape as humanly possible.
Oh, how did I?
Yeah,
I knew that was gonna be your
definitely no
answer.
for me. Yeah. How about you, Dave?
Um,
I feel like you'd watch
I
it.
would watch it. I feel like
Yeah.
that's so silly, but that would be kind of fun if if I could
Yeah,
race
fun.
against time,
Sounds so much
I'd be like, I'm
fun.
living a real life horror movie. I'm so special.
Yeah, that sounds like a blast.
When the movie came out to DVD, at the time, actually, VHS was at this point in time, VHS was almost completely dead. And DVDs were like the big number one home entertainment source. But
Yeah.
DreamWorks decided to still release The Ring on VHS, and
Hmm.
they made the actual tape look like a blank tape. So the outside of like the cassette tape was the Ring cover as we know it, and you just pull the tape out, and it was for the most part pretty much blank, which I thought was kind of cool.
Yeah,
Um, and
that's cool.
and
That is cool.
and then I actually remember this firsthand too on the DVD menu. If you like scrolled around like the menu screen, there was something that said "Do not watch this" that was hidden, but your remote would find it even though it was hidden. It would say "Do not watch this," and then you would watch it, and then of course it was the video. But a really cool thing it did was you couldn't skip it once you clicked it. You had to
Oh
watch it.
boy.
And then whenever the video was over, it would go back to the main menu like a normal DVD. But once it went back to the main menu, the screen would get like a VHS filter on it, and it would make a ringing sound like a ringing telephone. And then
God,
after, I
that's
think it was
smart.
after like two rings, you would hear 7 days.
Yeah, yeah, that's smart.
It's
That's
great.
smart right there.
It's so good. I remember I would always click it and be like, well, nothing's happening to me, so this is stupid. I'm just kidding.
You're like, I want it to happen.
Samara, where are you? See
Amara.
me running around in the woods looking for a well. Oh,
Oh
not the
God.
well. Not that
Oh
creepy
well.
well. Cool, perfect. Okay, so kind of get into the movie a little bit. I said we would talk about this opening scene.
Mhm.
The movie actually starts off with the DreamWorks logo as normal, and it's a little kid fishing on a moon. But what I think is pretty cool, they put the VHS filter on it. It has some of that static on the
Mhm.
screen. And then if you're really paying attention and you watch closely, the half moon actually turns into the ring very fast.
Oh,
Did you notice that?
I did not notice
Mm,
that. I'm gonna rewatch
I
that
love it.
now.
And there's actually, don't quote me, but at least that I noticed 2 points in the movie when the screen flashes really fast and there's a ring on the whole screen. Yeah, I don't know. I'm drawing circles in the air for people who aren't watching
That's
me.
probably when
So,
I was looking away.
but yeah, so it's pretty cool that there's flashes of the ring throughout the movie too. I think that's pretty awesome. Kind of keeps up with the creepiness of the film as a whole. Makes you feel like you're really into it.
Yeah.
But the first line of the movie um, is one of the girls saying, "I hate television." So,
Yeah.
um, kind of fun to
Yep.
walk into that. We'll talk a little bit about the filter here too. Throughout the entire movie, there's a greenish blue tint to the color scheme of this
Hmm.
film. Do you like that, or do you think it's distracting?
It did not distract me at all. I think it added to the movie
Same.
for sure.
Um, I didn't put this together myself, but through research, even back when I first saw the movie, obviously it's very prominent in the film. Like you notice it. Like you said, I think it added element of kind of creepiness to it. The movie
Mhm.
takes place in Seattle, Washington, which obviously is known for its super rainy days, its gloomy days, and there's a lot of talk of the well in this film. So
Mhm.
basically, the cinematographer kind of thought if by putting this color grading on the film would give it that dreary moss like overtone. So you're kind of getting that feel of like dampness, like you're immersed into that world, that everything's just like wet and dreary. Um, and then obviously,
which is what I love for my weather. So
excellent. This is a movie for
I
you.
love the filter.
Perfect. Yeah, I think the filter's pretty awesome. I do know uh, a lot of people do talk about the color grading being super weird. Some people find it
Mhm.
too distracting. But I think I think it adds to the classicness of the film when you see that color scheme. You're just like, ah, the ring.
Yeah, I agree. I agree. I like it.
Good. Glad we agree on that because I
Mhm.
think, like I said, it definitely adds an element to the movie. Um, but the opening scene just happens with these two girls, Katie and Becca, trying to decide what they want to watch on television. They're having a conversation about how television's not good for us, electro rays and things like that. Um,
And
and then they start talking about this tape, regular blank tape, that when you start to play it, it's kind of like watching someone's nightmare play out. And then a woman comes on the screen. There's a well, and it's all this creepy images. And as Becca is telling Katie this, Katie just kind of has this look of fear on her face. She then admits that I've watched that video. I've seen that.
mhm.
Her reaction here is great. You can literally see the fear on her face. And Becca's kind of like, "What's wrong with you? What's going on?" And she's like, "I've watched this video. Me and my boyfriend watched this video, and it's definitely very creepy." So she then decides to play a prank. She pretends like she's choking because it's the seventh day to the date that she watched the film, which follows the myth of what this video does. And then in her quote unquote choking, she starts laughing. So we as the audience are relieved. We're like, thank God this is just a silly prank, friends being friends. Um, but then all of that silliness is ruined by a ringing telephone.
Yep. The ring has two meanings here, dude.
Absolutely, yes. And I'm actually glad you pointed that out because
Mhm.
both are very prominent throughout the film. Um, you know, before you die, you see the ring, and
Mhm.
after you watch the video, so when you're on your final 7 days, you hear the ring. So
You hear the ring.
yeah,
Yep.
oof. I'm glad you said that. That's
Ooh.
definitely pretty cool. So the girls decide to answer the phone. Becca decides now to return the favor of the prank phone or of the prank, and hands the phone to Katie, and Katie then says, "Oh, it's my mom. Like whatever,
Yeah.
it's fine." So again, as the audience were relieved, there's still some tension in the air though. We feel like there's definitely something very odd about what's happening. Becca decides to go upstairs to continue trying to figure out something to watch on the television. And this is when Katie decides to get a drink and hears the television in the other room turn on. We hear the white noise. She's kind of creeped out. She goes out to turn the television off. She thinks it's Becca again, just playing a little prank on her. She turns the television off and she sees a weird type of entity kind of float across the screen that creeps her out. Now it's just there's definitely pure fear in the air at this moment in time. She walks away from the television. It turns back on. So now we know, okay, we're definitely in this horror film now for sure.
Oh
And
yeah. Let me out the door.
out the door. She,
Out
however,
the
she, however,
door.
she's just creeping around. Starts noticing like quasi weird things. She calls Becca's name, and naturally, there's no response. She walks up the steps to the room. She hears um, some creepy sounds. Notices a bunch of water on the floor coming out from underneath a closed door, which she slowly opens to only reveal a television with a well on the screen. And
Mhm.
the camera does a really cool trick here. It moves very fast up to Katie's face as we slowly see Katie's face distort the closer we get. Again, it's very cut. It's very chopped up, very fast pace. Um, but in that fast pace zoom into her face, we just see her facial expression just disappear.
Disappear.
So that is the opening
Yeah.
scene. What do you think of the opening scene? What's your take on it?
It's a good setup for the rest of the movie. I I felt like they were tricking me the entire beginning, like, "Oh, I didn't see the tape. Oh, I saw the tape." And I'm like, "Okay, she'll be fine.
It's fine. Everything's fine. It's just a
She'll
videotape.
be fine. She'll be fine." But it was when the TV turns on, the static does something to me. I don't know what it does, but it's creepy. Um, and then, it makes you take the rest of the movie seriously, you know?
Yep.
It's like, "Hey, this is what it's about."
Yeah, there's a lot of debate online. There are people very divided on the opening scene. I personally really like it. Um,
Yeah.
I think it kind of played a little bit with what we were used to with the horror genre at the time, um, most notably Scream. Kind of,
Very 90s.
yeah,
Yeah.
yeah, very 90s
Yeah.
dialogue, banter back and forth. Um, the real serious thing, the joke, real serious, the joke, and then
Yeah.
terror. Uh,
Right.
I do think the dialogue is a little clunky. I feel like that's a very in-depth conversation at the beginning, um, talking about the television. However, I understand why it's there. I do feel like the talk about media and television, and its kind of poison on society
Mhm.
is a very, very prominent thing about this film. So it definitely makes sense to me. But that's actually
I
one
think
of
it sets up the movie very well, but I feel like that like, the rest of the movie has a completely different feel
yeah.
than that first scene.
Yeah,
But I liked it because it gave me a clue as to what was gonna happen.
yeah, yeah. I feel like we talked about how the 80s and 90s were focused on this aspect of horror films, and I feel like the opening scene held on to a little bit of what we loved about that stuff, but also
Mhm.
slowly brought us into the world of what we're about to experience. So
Right.
I feel like it's a nice little bridge there. So,
Mhm.
um, and then the sound design for this film, not even just the score, just the sound design itself, the television static, the screeching sound, various bugs and things like that. Uh,
So many bugs.
so many bugs, and it's that sound alone, like just. I mean, even that scene, like the focal point switching back to her face and her reaction, and it deteriorating the sound from the video itself, very creepy. Definitely sticks with you, and it's very loud, very prominent, and it makes it like a main character in a way, the sound design. So I think that's pretty cool.
Yeah, for sure.
Uh, then we quick cut to our lead character here, Naomi Watts. Naomi Watts. I'm sorry. She plays Rachel. She's a
Mhm.
journalist, and she's in school. She's coming to the school to pick her son up. She kind of reveals that she's a working woman. It seems like Aiden was stuck at school a little bit longer than he should have. But the teacher used this opportunity to talk to her about these drawings that he has been doing in class, which shows him drawing a dead girl. It's then revealed that Katie from the opening scene is actually his cousin. So he's been drawing these pictures of her. Rachel kind of sees it as, it's his way of grieving. They were very close. And then the teacher lets her know that he's been drawing these pictures before Katie actually passed away. Creepy.
Yeah, any kid drawing pictures in a horror movie, you should, like, watch out for.
Yeah, absolutely. So one thing I want to ask you, I want to get your opinion on. You
Mhm.
mentioned two creepy children in this film. You're obviously referring to Aiden and Samara. Do you feel as though Aiden is tapped in to the supernatural world, or do you think he's just very intuitive?
I think he's tapped in, and I think a lot of children are, um, in general. I don't know if anyone believes in that kind of thing. I do, and I feel like children in general, um, I don't know, they have less, like, walls up and guards up, and yeah.
Yeah, I'll be honest, I've never seen The Ring 2, and I've never seen Rings, which are the two sequels to this movie. I Nothing against them. I really, no spoiler here, I really love this movie. I definitely
Mhm.
think it's a classic for sure, and I just love the storyline of this one and how it's still kind of open ended and not 100% explained. and I'm fearful that the Ring 2 and or Rings will kind of take away from all of that.
Like give it more closure.
Yeah, I kind of like the openness of it all. I know some people probably wouldn't agree with that. I do find sometimes with horror movies, like motives for killers and creepy stuff happening doesn't always need to have 100% full background. I think
Mhm.
sometimes that mystery of it all makes it even scarier. And sometimes when we add all those extra layers to it, it kind of takes away from the creepiness, if you will. But
Yeah.
I like that
So
this
do
movie.
you think back then?
So I I want to say most likely yes. I personally
Mhm.
think at least in this movie, because they don't really explain it either way. I do think he's very intuitive. I think he's obviously a very smart kid who's had to pretty much take care of himself probably most of his life, which I don't know his age, but it hasn't been a very long life. But he's
Mhm.
definitely way more mature than he probably should be at that age.
Yeah.
So I do feel like he's very open to different things. But yeah, I guess maybe he is tapped in a little bit. Like you said, I feel like children do have that little extra um, open mindedness to things that, if we're talking.
Yeah. And I feel like that's like a common thing in like horror movies. Not that I've seen that much, but
No, I know
the
what you mean.
kids always have way more knowledge than the adults. And um I think they are tapped into that world a little bit more than we are.
Yeah. I mean, yeah, I definitely agree. I think I really love and I like that it is a topic that we can talk about because they don't fully explain it. They don't give us a full answer on that. So, I like that aspect too. So it makes it something cool to chat about. But, um,
And I love the supernatural like that. So
oh yeah, for sure. I mean, really, when the movies are done really well, like the supernatural horror films, that they're done really well, like that's a great subgenre of horror movies that I always enjoy
yeah,
watching. So,
for
um,
sure.
so Rachel takes him home. They have conversations about, his cousin who's passed away, and she's kind of getting a feel for, how depressed he is about this. She seems a little cold to me, just kind of she's all about her job. She's, obviously she
Mm.
loves her kid, but she's just a hardworking person, so I don't feel like she's emotionally tapped in to
She's
her son.
not at all. That I actually have a note about that. Um, because someone makes a comment that her and Katie were very close.
Hmm.
And I'm like, well, I'm not seeing that on her
Right.
face at all.
Yeah. I do. So that kind of comes a little bit too with the writing to me. That's probably like my biggest criticism of this movie, and kind of my criticism for the writer. Scream 3 is my least favorite of the Scream movies. Um, Not that it's a bad movie, it has great moments. However, I do feel like uh, Aaron Kruger's writing just is a little all over the place. I feel like, in my opinion, is not very good with dialogue, but I do think that's one thing about this movie that could have been worked on a little bit more, is I feel like the characters aren't 100% fully developed, and the actors didn't really have a lot to play off of to give us those
Right.
backgrounds fully. If that makes sense.
Because we know Naomi Watts could give that performance.
Oh,
We know she could get there.
oh yes, yes.
Yeah.
Yeah. I mean, like we said, I mean, the Ring movie just put her on the map, and she's been in so many iconic things since, and she's definitely a huge staple in Hollywood, still to this day. So, um,
Yeah.
yeah, I definitely feel like she definitely is written kind of cold, but she
Mhm.
also it's just kind of like, well, my niece is dead, so still got to go to work and all this stuff.
Maybe she's throwing her grief into this investigative process.
Yeah, absolutely, yeah, and that's the thing. I mean, obviously, the writing, Aaron Kruger's writing style is definitely just an opinion of mine, um, but. One thing we can point out is that Aiden refers to his mom as Rachel. He never calls her
Yeah.
mom.
Never calls her mom.
And he seems annoyed. He does seem sad. Obviously, he lost his cousin, but he also just seems sad that he is so detached from Rachel that
Hmm.
you know. Uh, So it's the next morning, and they're getting ready to go to the viewing. She's looking for her black dress that she discovers Aiden has already laid out. He lets her know that it's still a little wrinkled, but obviously he's taking care of it as much as he can. And he's also
Mhm.
putting his tie on, which, you know what?
Own time. Yeah.
Props to that kid. I don't even know how to tie a tie. So I'm very happy that he can do this.
I don't even know how to tie my
Yeah, yeah,
shoelaces.
yeah, I
Just
struggle with that daily too. So yeah, it's fine.
kidding.
um,
Uh,
so here that's I mean that's a good writing style there. We kind of see that Aiden is able to take care of himself, and that she probably isn't very present at all in his life. Um,
and he kinda takes care of her too.
yeah, absolutely. So we're at the viewing, and we get a little bit of conversation between Rachel and I'm assuming it's her sister, and they're chatting about just how weird the mystery around Katie's death is. They went to go see multiple doctors after it happened. They talk about how scary her face looked, which is our first huge jump scare of the movie.
Um,
When she talks
yeah.
about seeing her daughter's face, it does a quick jump cut to the reveal with that great sound mixing I talked about. Did you jump out of your seat, Lauren?
I did not.
Okay.
I did not, but it was terrifying in its own right.
Is it imprinted in your mind? Do you just always see that face now?
I can picture it right now.
Excellent, excellent. Yeah, that's a scary face for sure.
That's a scary face.
Whatever she saw, she was mortified.
Mhm.
Um, Katie's mom talks about how she went to a bunch of doctors and they don't know how her heart just stopped. They can't
Right.
they can't figure it out. So we as an audience are like, ooh, how did she die? How did her heart just stop?
Mhm.
Rachel then heads outside to have a little smoke. There's hanging a
Some teens.
yeah, and she sees some teens doing the same thing, and she's like, "Oh, this is cool." So smoking with the teens, and this is actually one of Adam Brody's very first roles ever.
Is it?
It is. He's done a couple of like little things here and there, but this was right before the OC, so he wasn't.
I was gonna say he looks like the same age as
Yeah,
like the OC.
yeah, it's
Yeah.
actually one whole year before the OC, so. Um,
Okay.
Yeah, I would say it's a super small role. However, it's a memorable role because this is where we actually learn about that videotape a little bit more, and especially Rachel learns about it for the first time. Um,
Hmm.
he talks about how Katie and her boyfriend watched this video at a cabin with a couple other friends. They said it was a blank tape, and that if they were going to watch it, they were going to die 7 days after watching it. And here we are, both she and her boyfriend are dead. Obviously, the investigative side of Rachel is like, that sounds like something I want to go explore. Um, so, of course, she wants to, do right by her niece who has passed away, but also she wants to keep doing that hard work she does constantly. Aiden gets back upstairs into the bedroom of his cousin who has passed. He also sees the same supernatural thing move across the television screen. He checks the room out for a second to make sure there's nobody there. And Rachel gets back to him, and she's like, "Let's get out of here." She takes a second to look around her room and finds a scrapbook of a bunch of cutout magazine pictures, and notices that all of the pictures are um, scribbled over with a pen. So she's checking this out and she's like, what in the world is happening? She also finds a next day photo processing ticket. Back during this time, you could take pictures on a camera and you would take them to stores to get developed. So you would actually be able to
What?
physically hold the pictures in your hand. Crazy, right?
What does that feel like?
Yeah, what does that feel like? That's ancient relics here. Um,
I also wanted to point something out.
hmm?
When he goes into her room, the floor is like water worn
Yep.
outside the bedroom. So it's a physical, it definitely happened.
Yes. Yep. No, you're right. Yeah, so that water was definitely present on the floor. It left a big water
Mhm.
stain. The floor was a little warped. Um,
Mhm.
yeah, good thing to point out. Yeah, so we, as an audience, know that that definitely did happen. It wasn't just something that she experienced in her mind and then died. All that stuff did happen. So, Rachel goes and picks up the pictures. She's checking them out. It's Katie and all of her friends at the cabin. They look like they're having a good time, taking pictures, enjoying, teenage life. And then all of a sudden, she gets to a couple of pictures where all their faces looked warped. They're kind
Mm-hmm.
of skewed a little bit. Kind of looks like someone took a paintbrush to them and, jumbled them up a little bit. So of course this catches her eye. She's like, "What is this?" And she goes back home, do a little bit more investigation, along with researching at work to try to figure out what happened to the other people that were with her. And she discovers that the three others that were with her all died at 10 p.m., the same exact time that Katie died as well. Two of them must have been in a car together at 10 p.m. So they believed that they died in a car accident. Her boyfriend, they declared was suicide by jumping. And then, of course, Katie's heart just stopped in her bedroom. So all dead at 10 p.m.
Yeah. To me, I'm like, how did no cops like put this together
Right,
and think, oh, maybe there's something else going on here?
right. Yeah, it's definitely
Nope.
weird,
They went,
especially, I mean, if, like you said, if they were really investigating, they discovered that all the kids were together, a whole week before. They're all really
mm-hmm.
close and things like that. So, um, yeah, so Rachel decides, I'm gonna go check out this cabin. And she goes there and rents out the same exact room that the kids stayed in. And while she's waiting to go into the cabin, she sees a blank tape sitting on the shelf. And she was like,
Mm-hmm.
could this be the tape? She, of course, rents out that same room, which is cabin 12. She heads there to quote unquote take a nap before she travels back home. And there she heads into the room and decides to pop that videotape right into that VCR.
Why, Rachel?
Why,
Rachel,
Rachel?
stop.
Why would you have done that,
One
Rachel?
thing I did notice though was when that guy, the guy from the Shelter Mountain Inn, had the cards.
Hmm.
He'd be like, "Is this it?" And she'd be like,
Oh,
"No."
no.
And then, "And this it? No." And then the last card he pulled out was a seven.
Oh, I didn't
And
notice that.
what?
I didn't. Yeah. Look at you picking stuff
And
out.
she said, "Yep, that's it." She
Oh,
said, "Yep, that's it."
unlucky seven here. She's about to really get connection to that seven.
She is.
Um, yeah, so she goes into the room and she pops in that videotape and she starts watching it. And this is when we are first introduced to all the imagery on this tape. Um,
Yeah.
how did you feel about this tape? All the stuff that you witnessed on it?
Oh, yeah, no. No, no, no.
Uh,
I wrote down every single thing that was on the tape.
did you? What's on it?
The ring,
Hmm?
bloody water, lady in a mirror, daughter in a mirror, which we don't know was a daughter at the time, maggots, a centipede, fingers in a box, a tree on fire, a ladder that leads to nowhere, seemingly, dead horses, a woman jumping, and a well. That is what we see in this tape.
Perfect. Did you notice that in the maggots that you called out, the maggots slowly fade into a bunch of humans that are lying around?
At the front door. No.
Yeah, it's pretty cool. Yeah,
Okay, I
whenever.
need to go. I need to like rewatch just that.
Yeah, it's pretty cool. And then there's also, did you mention the three-legged goat?
I didn't. Did I miss the three-legged goat?
It's okay. I just remember the three-legged goat because I mean, in horror movies, I feel like goats are always symbolic of being really creepy, and
Yeah.
this one just had three legs, so I was like, that's cool.
There also was a chair
Hmm.
that was not set, like an empty chair.
Hmm. Yeah, the
But I
chair's
don't.
the chair's sitting at the table, and it's slowly being pulled out. So you think, okay, there's a ghost, and then the centipede crawls out from underneath the table, which is why the chair was
Uh-huh.
moving. One other fun thing to point out: the very last uh, footage of the video is of the well, um, kind of pulled back a little bit, and very slowly, if you're really watching, very slowly, you can start to see a hand come up out of the well,
Really?
and then it cuts static. So then later on in the movie, when the video is shown again, the end scene of the video shows a little bit more of the hand. Now Samara is actually coming more out of the
Coming
well.
out. Yeah.
So I feel like
I
the.
didn't notice a hand this time at all.
Okay.
Yeah.
Yep, it's very, very quick and very faint, and then I think the other couple of times it kind of progresses a little bit further. So, cool. Now she has watched the video and she just has terror written all over her face. And just then the phone rings.
She gets a ring.
She gets a ring. Not the ring that she probably wanted. She goes and answers the phone. She picks it up. She kind of knows what it's gonna say to her, but she doesn't want to believe it until she hears what, Lauren?
7 days.
Yes. Scary. Oh my God, you are Samara.
Days. I know. I almost like pulled my hair in front
Oh
of my
gosh,
face before
you should have.
um you saw me on here.
Well, it's funny that you say that because I actually, in my mind, I was like, I wish I had like a really long wig or something, and I would just throw it over. So whenever you came on the camera, I'd just be looking, at you through
Yeah.
through my hair. But unfortunately, I don't have any wigs lying around. I'm sorry to let you down.
Yeah. I'm disappointed.
Damn. Something silly I want to point out that you might not have noticed, and obviously you're the only one that can see me. But when we did Scream, I wore a Ghostface shirt. When we
Uh-huh.
did Jawbreaker, I wore bright colors. And for
Uh-huh.
this one, I wore the same type of green. That's the color scheme of the movie. And wait,
Hey, I did too.
I was gonna say, your shirt is, yeah, no,
Oh, I did.
it looks like the
I
same.
didn't do it on purpose. Isn't that crazy?
Well, that's just another
First I
sign.
wear Mayo's sweater.
See, we have our own little themes happening. We don't even realize it.
Don't even realize it.
I love us.
Yes.
Um, so after she gets a phone call, 7 days, we cut to Aiden walking through the rain. He's obviously taking himself to school, and he has an umbrella. It's raining, like I said, and he runs into a person on the street,
Mhm.
and he looks up from underneath his umbrella, and the man does not have an umbrella. They stare, they make eye connections, and then they just walk on. Here we then cut to that same man is now in the apartment with Rachel, and she's like, "Thank you so much for coming over. Please look at these pictures." She's talking about the video that she watched, and the camera, the picture that she's taking is showing a warped face, just like the pictures that she discovered from Katie. This guy's name is Noah. At this moment in time, we don't really know much about him except that he's definitely somebody in Rachel's life, but we don't exactly know what the connection is. They they definitely know each other pretty well. They seem like there's a little bit of banter between the two of them, like they maybe they've been lifelong friends, or he's an ex of some kind. But we don't really know the full story there. He reveals that he's really into technology. He's like, "Let me check this tape out." She's a little hesitant at first, but he ends up popping it in and he starts watching it.
Mhm.
I do want to point out while he's watching the video, Rachel ends up stepping out onto the patio of her apartment. She lives in this huge skyrise apartment complex, so she can see a bunch of neighbors across the street. She can see into some of their windows, and I feel like this scene is definitely very symbolic of what the film is about, of how
Mhm.
all these windows that she's looking at, there's people living their daily lives, doing chores around the house, etc. However, each room that we can see into, there is a television. The television is on,
He's on.
and people are
Yep.
watching it. So
Yep.
yeah, I do feel like this movie, as mentioned before, kind of is very symbolic of how television, media, etc., is plays a big part in our life, and we don't even realize it. We're always subjected to
Yep.
those types of things. Aiden comes back out onto the patio, and he's like, "Well, I watched it. Doesn't seem too phased by it." He says, "I'm
Definitely
sure."
student film. Yeah.
Yeah, he mentions that it's definitely a student film, and he's like, "And I'm
Yes.
sure it's much scarier at nighttime." It's just that the phone rings in classic fashion, and we know what this means. However, she refuses to answer the phone, and she just lets it ring. She's like,
Lets
maybe
it
if I don't,
ring.
maybe if I don't eat this, maybe if I don't answer this, no, don't eat the phone. Yeah, don't eat the
Don't eat the
phone. Yeah,
phone.
that's gonna be awkward. So she decides not to eat the phone, but she also decides not to answer the phone. She thinks if she decides not to answer it, maybe his life will be spared. So
And
that's
she
very.
deletes that message too.
And she deletes the message. She sees that there's a
Wow.
message on the answering machine, and she's like, "Nope, I am over
Nope.
it." Um,
Bye.
Aiden's like, I'm sorry, not Aiden, Noah. Noah's like, can you please just make me a copy of this tape? I kind of want to investigate this more. And she's like, sure, I got you. She ends up taking the tape to get copied. She's at her work. They have tons of tech stuff there. While she's making a copy of it, she notices that the tracking device that is playing the video is not showing any type of tracking numbers. It's almost as
Mm-hmm.
if there's no, as Noah ends up explaining, there's no fingerprint to this videotape.
Yeah.
That's definitely a very
Nope.
techie type thing.
Yeah, I was.
Um,
But you said no control track or something like that.
yes, yep. Yeah, so I don't, I mean, I'll be honest, I don't fully understand that as well. I mean, I definitely like technology and stuff, but I never really paid attention to all those those deep things like that. Um,
Yeah.
but when she brings him the copy, it's now day two for her, and he's watching the copy of the tape, and he notices that there's no numbers. That kind of keeps that imprint alive. He explains it to her, and she notices while they're watching that there is something else on the screen, that maybe the tracking's mixed up a little bit, and that there's something else there that they're not seeing. While they're trying to figure it out, someone comes into the room, which we are obviously now at his apartment. Another woman walks into the room. Rachel definitely gets a little cold when she walks in as well. And this is the point where we kind of think, well, I think maybe there's definitely a history between these two. Um,
Yeah, definitely some romantic history between
yep.
them. Yeah.
Yeah. So he offers to show this girl who gives him a kiss on the cheek. You should look at this video as well. And Rachel's like, nope, I'm heading out. So she grabs the tape and pieces out.
Pieces out.
When she walks outside, there is a ladder up against the building that looks exactly like the ladder from the video.
Mm-hmm.
Creepy. So
Creepy.
her reaction to this moment is my reaction yesterday when I picked up my cup and there was a bright red ring from the condensation. So I felt very like I was immersed into the film at this moment in time. I was like, well, here we go.
Yeah.
We're now on day now on day three, and we cut to a mental facility where we
Mm-hmm.
discover that this is now where Becca is. Becca is
Yeah.
obviously from the opening scene. She's very, very fucked up from what happened from the early scene of the film, watching,
Rightfully so.
rightfully so, watching Katie die. Um, as we're watching Becca walk through the hallways of this place, there's a nurse pushing a large like curtain next to her.
Rain, yeah.
Yeah, so I think that's pretty cool because she stops for a second and looks into a room where there's a television playing. So at this point, we kind of realize that maybe televisions have her really messed up. Just
Yeah.
seeing televisions on. So she stops. The nurse pushes the curtain back in front of her so she can't see the TV, and she's like, "Let's keep walking."
Do
We,
you think that's why there's the curtain, or do you think it's just to like shield her from everybody else?
um, honestly, I think it's the TV thing. Uh,
Yeah, same.
because so when she stops and she kind of sees the TV a little bit, and then they push the curtain back, we also as an audience notice that everyone that's in that room except for like two people are literally just staring at the TV screen, like
Yeah.
like zombies to what they're watching on television. So I feel like that's kind of like symbolic again of how we're all just constantly sucked into this media world. So she's kind of shielding herself from being a part of that now. So we discover that she is walking down the hallway to go meet with Rachel. Rachel reveals who she is and asks her some questions about what happened that night. And yeah, do you remember anything about the scene?
Oh, yes. Yes. This was one of the creepier scenes to me. I think at some point Rachel goes like, "I need to know," and she goes, "And you will." Like
Mhm.
she knows, like for some reason, I feel like she has whatever Aiden has at this point.
Hmm.
Like, she can see what's gonna happen,
Yeah.
and she says she'll show you, and then she puts her like hand into a number 4,
Hmm.
meaning that she knows that Rachel has 4 days left to figure this out, which is
Creepy.
creepy. Creepy.
Yeah, Rachel kind of got what she wanted here. Is next part of the investigation. So, uh, she goes back to do a little bit more investigating of this videotape, and when she gets to researching, she's at a library. She, when watching the video, sees the scene in the video where there's a fly on the screen.
Uh,
She's messing around with the tracking a little bit because she wants to discover what that part of the video that they can't find is. But she notices that the fly might be real. So she reaches her hand
yeah.
onto the screen and she actually picks the fly right out of the video.
I was like, holy moly. And
I feel like that's,
then her nose starts
yep. And then her nose starts
bleeding.
bleeding. Yep. Yeah. So just a little creepy thing there about the video, but we realized that she's been printing some
Yeah.
pictures off of the video that she was watching to try to put more puzzle pieces together. At the library, she's researching and discovers the name Anna Morgan. She puts all this together by discovering that the tracking piece that they were missing from the video, she discovered was actually a lighthouse. So
Which she finds what lighthouse this is in mere minutes, I might
listen,
add.
I tell you what, she has established herself as a boss ass bitch from the beginning of this, and she just
She
keeps
flipped a
proving
few
it.
pages.
Yeah. I mean, in 7 days, she literally solves this crime as much as she can. Like,
Uh-huh.
we need more people like her. Like, we could
I
really
was like, girl, you picked up the right book.
so lucky. Um,
Well,
so she discovers the lighthouse. She discovers connections to the lighthouse, which includes a horse farm. These horses are dying, they're sick. The woman's name is Anna Morgan, who's been breeding these horses. And, she just keeps kind of diving deep into all the connections with Anna Morgan. And she pulled out a bunch of library books. She's looking up old newspapers, all the fun stuff.
mhm,
So we then cut to Noah at a convenience store. He's buying some cigarettes, and he happens to notice up on the surveillance screen where he can see himself that his face is warped. So
yeah.
creepy.
So in the her researching, she didn't know
Mm,
it, but she was crossing a space out like her
yes,
niece did in her like little scrapbook.
yes, good to point out. Yeah, she um, was taking notes, and when she would pause, she found herself just constantly scratching her pen and looked over and noticed that she was scratching the faces out. Yeah,
Mhm.
definitely forgot about that part. And at this point in time, Noah is very convinced that, okay, maybe this urban legend is real, and I'm going to die because my face is warped, just like everybody else is. Rachel's back at home now at nighttime after her research, and she decides that she's gonna make a couple phone calls. She's talking to her sister on the phone and starts to choke. What happens in
Yep.
this scene, Lauren?
Oh
What's
my
she choking
god.
on?
Ugh. She like pulls this string out of her mouth. What are those called that they stick on you? I don't know.
Uh, uh, I forget what they're called.
They're like electro. I don't know what they are. But like
Yeah,
those
so
things when you're at the hospital and they're like taking like your EKG or something like that,
mhm.
right?
Yeah, it's like the little white patch, little circular white
Yeah.
patch, in the shape of a ring, um,
Uh-huh.
that they
True.
place on you. Yeah, they place on you to check your heart and everything. So she pulls
Yeah.
one of those from her mouth that she's choking on, uh, and then she decides that, which doesn't decide, but she then has a vision of Samara,
Mhm.
this girl from the well that we're slowly starting to see come out of that well. And we discover this is a nightmare, but she looks down, and where Samara grabs her in the little nightmare she had, she can actually see the outline of her hand, like a bruise.
Mhm.
Creepy.
Yep.
Rachel wakes up, but unfortunately, we hear something we did not want to hear, and that is the
Yeah.
sound of the videotape playing in the apartment. Rachel is
I'm like, "Bro, you
panicked.
couldn't put this, like, a little better from your side?
Mm-hmm.
Like, what
Yep.
are you doing?
Yep.
Locked
So
away."
panic. We as an audience panic. I mean, that sound alone from the video, we knew what was happening. Rachel discovers that Aiden is watching the video, and it's at the very end. And this is the scene where we see Samara actually coming out of the well more than she
Yeah.
was the first time, the first go
Mhm.
around. Rachel lets out a very loud and very real scream. Great acting in that moment.
A
Uh,
movie.
you,
It was a movie scream, yeah, for sure.
Yeah, I mean, you can see the fear on her face. You can hear it in that scream. Aiden's all confused, like, I mean, I just watched the video, Mom, you weirdo. Like, I'm fine. Calm down.
Mhm.
There was something bad on it. And the phone rings. Rachel picks it up, slams it down. Again, she's like, I'm not answering this. Hopefully, this will help with everything. And it rings again. She picks it up. She says, "Leave me alone," only to discover that it's Noah on the other line, letting her know that he believes her. He took a whole bunch more pictures of
Yeah.
himself after the convenience store, a video camera footage, and he's like, "I agree. All these pictures, my face is warped. We're definitely gonna die." How exciting! Um, he can tell that she's panicked,
Aw.
and he's like, "What's wrong?"
Yep.
And she's like, "He watched it." He's like, "Who watched it?" And what does she say, Lauren?
She says, "Our son." I had no idea. Noah idea.
No idea. Oh, look at that pun. Look at you.
Oh boy.
Telling jokes on the podcast. Love
I
it.
know.
Uh,
I That's crazy to me.
yeah, so I think that was a pretty cool reveal.
Yeah.
Like you said, definitely didn't see it coming. We knew there was a connection there
Well,
somehow. Um, but man, I feel like I use this word a lot during this podcast, but Aiden's very cold towards Noah. That
yeah.
I didn't even realize there was even a connection with them. I felt like he was just like, well, this is my mom's friend, and I'm kind of a loner and keep to myself, so I'm not going to chat with this dude anyway.
Yeah, and it's revealed that they're not really close at all.
Hmm.
So he's not really in Aiden's life at all.
Yep. I think he even asks if in the next scene they have a conversation, the two of them. Now that we know that he's the father, they basically says like, "Do you want me in your life?" And Aiden's just like, "I don't really care. Like, it's not really important to me."
Mm.
Um, Love the honest
Yeah.
dialogue, man. They just really letting it
Well,
out
and
there.
Noah's like, I don't know if I could be a good dad, but I don't want anyone else to be your dad either.
Yeah. Hmm.
So,
That's true. Yeah. Um, but yeah, definitely honest dialogue. Back to me criticizing the writing. I think that was good writing there. It was very blunt, simplistic. I think a lot of people are afraid to have those types of conversations, so it could be weird to some people to hear such an honest dialogue between two characters of this relation. But I think it works well in the context of everything that's happening. Um, so Rachel decides that she's gonna go check out this lighthouse. Just keep on investigating in the remaining days she has. We're actually on day
yeah.
6, so the day before she's gonna die, she's like, well, I'm here. I'm gonna figure this all out and whatever. So she's on a ferry because you have to get a ferry over to this lighthouse. Tell us
Yeah.
about what happens on this ferry,
I
Lauren.
won't want to talk about it.
I, you know, it's so funny when
Ugh.
obviously I remember this scene because it sticks out a lot. But I just remember telling Zach when we were watching it together, I was like, I feel like Lauren probably hated this scene.
Hated it with every fiber of my being.
Hmm. Well,
It's the saddest thing.
what
Saddest thing.
happens?
So,
Tell us
yeah,
all about your drama.
Rachel's okay, yeah, Rachel's on this ferry and she notices a horse in a trailer. And I don't know if we know of the connection of the horses at this point. Yeah, we do. We do. She knows that. Yeah. But she goes over and just to say hi to the horse. And the horse is spooked, totally freaked out by her. He definitely has some like sense of like intuition or sense about her. And he freaks out, breaks out of the trailer, runs all over the ship, not ship, ferry,
Hey,
like Titanic. And then eventually he runs straight towards her, only for her to like duck, and he jumps off the ferry. And he's dragged under. They all run to the other side of the ferry, and that bloody water from the video,
Mhm.
that's what you see. And it was so awful. I couldn't I oh, I definitely had some tears in my eyes. I couldn't handle this scene. This was the worst scene.
Yeah, it's pretty intense. I remember in the theater, everyone just being like, "Oh my God, what is happening?"
Yeah. Yeah.
So,
It's that, and I just, of course I'm like lame, and I'm like, I hope that they treated that horse okay on the set, and I hope he was like trained
oh,
in stunts and that he wasn't hurt. And I was very concerned about the fate of this actor horse.
so you don't want to know the real story about what actually happened?
No, what?
I'm just kidding.
Ah,
Just teasing you. No,
uh,
there's definitely,
well,
definitely, definitely people on set that that watch, what's happening with these animals, and I don't know 100%, but I believe that it was very 50-50 of being a real horse and
yeah.
being CGI. Uh,
Uh-huh.
but I will say that I personally think the CGI, especially for the horse, is actually really good, really good.
Well, yeah, because I really thought it was a real horse the entire time. And I
Yeah.
know like that is a trend obviously nowadays with pretty much every animal being
Hmm.
CGI, which I'm a fan of because they didn't sign up for that, you
Right.
know?
Right.
Not to get to you know, PETA on everybody, but
We'll do a whole side podcast of PETA movies, like make
PETA
sure that
movies, yeah.
movies that were
Yeah.
PETA approved. I'll
I
even
could go on for those about that.
yeah, so R.I.P. to the horse.
Yeah.
The girl that was on the boat, her that was her horse. She
Was their
she was
horse,
very
yeah.
sad about it. So we're still in the investigation mode. Noah decides that he's going to investigate by going to get some medical records on Anna Morgan, and he decides to break into the medical record room. All while Rachel is uh, at the Morgan house near the lighthouse, and she meets Mr. Morgan, Richard Morgan, and she kind of
Yep.
introduces herself. She goes into the house. She starts noticing things from the video, such as the mirror,
Mhm.
and she's like, this is creepy."
Yeah.
Tell us a little bit about the interaction with Mr. Morgan here.
Really give a lot up. He does say at one point, like, I never had a daughter, didn't he?
Yep.
Yeah. He says that I never had a daughter. Yeah. He wasn't very forthcoming with her at all. He kind of like brushes her off and sends her on her way.
Yep. It's then that Rachel didn't really get much of this interaction, so she decides to go to visit Samara, which we know now is the daughter of a daughter of them. She gets a little background of who Samara is, and we learned that the Morgans were trying to have a baby. They had a lot of miscarriages, and they decided to adopt. They went away to go adopt a child, but didn't really tell anybody where they were going or anything like
Uh-huh.
that. And then when they came back, they had a child. They said that the mother they had adopted Samara from had died of complications. So yeah, I mean that's she gives enough background for us to be in tune with what's happening, but it's still very ambiguous. It's still very open, and
Yeah.
this goes with me saying that we're getting background on what's happening, but at the same time, it's not. We don't know like who was the mother, things like that. Like we don't know all
Well,
of that stuff, and to me, that's okay.
yeah.
So they were
For now.
for now. She said that Samara was suffering from vision and seeing things, and sharing those with the family, and then other people around her started seeing these exact same things. Um, that only happened when they were around Samara. That they would see these weird visions, and they knew something just wasn't right with what was going on. So they end up going. Yeah, they end up seeing a psychiatrist. It's definitely this movie is very dialogue heavy. There's a lot of story to be told. Um,
Mm-hmm.
that's why I do feel like it's definitely rewatchable in a sense that you kind of get a little something from it each time you watch it.
Oh, definitely. I caught way more things the second time I watched it
hmm
than
Yep.
the first time.
Yep. But she makes a reference to if she catches a cold, everybody catches a cold.
Right.
So Samara definitely has a big impact on what's happening. And, with all this information, she decides to go back to visit Mr. Morgan. And she finds a videotape of Samara from there that she wants to watch. And it's the doctor's, a psychiatrist actually, talking with Samara, asking her about these visions. What do you remember from this video of them talking to Samara?
They were like, how, where did these visions come from? And then she was like, I see them and then they just are. They just are.
Creepy.
Yeah. Creepy. And I think at this point, does Rachel figure out that Samara is actually Anna Morgan's actual daughter, not someone. Which, if you were trying to have a child, I'm not sure why you would then come and be like, oh, we adopted her.
Yeah, I feel like I don't. So I think that opens a dialogue into the lore too. Like they went away, didn't tell anybody where they went. So was there something else? Was there something sinister that impregnated her? Something like that.
Or, like, did they, like, do some, like, crazy, non traditional something, like supernatural something in order to conceive? And that's, you know what I mean? That's where
Yeah,
my mind went.
yeah. And again, I love the openness of it. So I feel like kind of we can kind of play it out however we want to in that sense. But yeah, then she talks about how Daddy never wanted me or Daddy doesn't love
Yeah.
me.
Mm-hmm.
Uh, the video stops and Mr. Morgan's behind Rachel and just whips her. And
Just, yeah,
yep.
right across the face.
Rachel screams, "What did you do to her?" I mean, at this point, she's like, I'm going to be dead in less than 24 hours, so I need all of these answers, mister. And while Mr. Morgan's talking with her, they're walking through the house, going up the steps, and she starts to realize that there's water on the floor, starts noticing
Mhm.
cords, and Mr. Morgan is wrapping a bunch of electronic devices around himself and starting to plug things in. He's standing in front of a bathtub that is full of water. He has a television next to the next to the bathtub, and he's basically talking to her. Uh, she'll show you things. He's talking about she'll never stop no matter what. He
Mhm.
says, you coming here proves that. Um, I think he also says at this point in time, which is actually a really good line for the film, that I think kind of sums up, the bigger picture of the film. He says, "I don't know what it is with you reporters. You take one person's tragedy and force the world to experience it, spread it like sickness."
Yeah.
Uh, we'll get into this at the end, but I feel like
Mm.
that line holds very true, especially in today's world as well, with everything going on.
Wow.
So yeah, so Mr. Morgan's basically saying his goodbyes as he's putting all these electric devices on him, and then he just drops down in that water after plugging it in, and you know electrocuted for sure. One thing that I was always confused about at this moment in time, Rachel's, freaking out because she's watching a man get electrocuted. She's screaming, she jumps out, and Noah's right there in the hallway behind her, hugs her.
Yeah.
How did he get
It,
there so quick?
well, he was trying to get a hold of her because of what he found out at the hospital, and
Was he
he like
already was he
he was
already
like trying to
on the
call
island?
her. He was on the mainland, but like right on the mainland. So all he had to do was take a ferry over. But he was like trying
Gotcha.
to call her,
Okay, gotcha.
and she wasn't
I
picking
don't know
up.
why every time I watch it, I'm like, why is he just there?
Yeah, I
But yeah,
think
that
he
makes
like
sense.
sensed that something was wrong and like rushed there.
Gotcha.
Yeah, because
That
she was
makes
gonna.
sense.
Yeah.
So they venture out together. They're like, well, Mr. Morgan's dead. I guess we got to do the rest of the investigation on our own. They head out to the
Mm-hmm.
barn because Samara mentions the barn being afraid of it. They find a large ladder in the barn that's similar to the one in the video, and that
Mm-hmm.
ladder leads to a small little loft where there's a
Mm-hmm.
bunch of child things, such as the chair we see in the video. There's a television, a small little bed, a rocking horse. So it appears as
Yeah.
though they've been keeping her up there in the barn, not really wanting to take care of her. So that's not cool.
I think they were just trying to keep her away because of the, how she was making them feel,
Yeah.
probably.
Yeah, all those
Yeah.
visions that she was putting into their minds and things like that. Yeah, like you said, they wanted to keep her away, so they didn't have to experience any of that. They noticed that there's some chipping in the wallpaper pulled away to reveal a tree. And then we arrive to day 7, Rachel's very last day. So they go back to the Shelter Mountain Inn where that tree that's painted on the wall is. It's a very red tree.
Mm-hmm.
Um, it's now the sun's coming through the leaves at this moment in time. Uh, Rachel mentions that when the sun comes through the tree, the way it lights up, it looks like it's on fire, which is exactly what that painting was. So Samara's painting led them straight back to the cabin where this whole story began, and they're talking more about everything that's happening, all the pieces they put together, and they start to realize that there's something strange in the middle of the floor.
Yep. Yep. The marbles.
Drop the marbles. It all rolls to the center of the room. So the floor slanted for some reason. They use their woodsman skills and chop the wood up, and they reveal a well. It's the same well from that video.
Which
Dun
is
dun
like,
dun.
why would you build a cabin
I know, right?
right under a well? I don't understand.
It's so silly, but they got this far and they're like, well, might as well just keep going. And the television turns on as they're looking at the well. There's some water leaking from the television, and a bunch of the nails start rising up from the floor.
It's creepy to me.
Yeah.
The nails was like,
hmm
okay, I'm gonna look away right now.
Yeah. Samara's like, I led you all the way here. I gave you all the signs. You guys have made it this far, and you're going to solve the rest of this. The floorboard then snaps. It tilts the television down, and the television rolls right down the wooden floor that's slanted and bumps into Rachel, knocking her straight down that well.
Straight down the well.
And here we have arrived to the end of the movie.
Yes. Quote. Dave is doing quotation marks right now.
Yes, got the quote. I always forget that no one can see me. I always like to. Maybe someday we'll go live with all these. Um,
Yes. Yes.
so now Rachel's at the bottom of the well. She comes to, and she starts to see fingernails on the side, like someone was down in the
Yes.
well.
Yep. Yep. That freaked me out too.
Noah's trying to find every way he can to run over to help her get out of the well. And there she finds a pile of hair she starts to pull out from the water, which is very
Mm-hmm.
reminiscent of Samara's hair. And this opens up a vision that Samara is going to give to her about
Yeah.
that wonderful day. Do you remember what happens now, Lauren?
Yes. Her mom, Samara's standing at the well. Her mom comes up behind her. And you think it's gonna be like a nice scene.
Like, oh, this is cute.
And then she brings out a plastic bag, puts it over Samara's head, says, "You were all I ever wanted," or something like that, right?
Yep.
And then pushes her down the well.
Yep.
Pushes her down the well.
Yeah, she wraps that plastic bag right around her head and starts suffocating her, tosses her straight
Uh-huh.
down the well. This, you know, shows us that basically what happened was Samara was thrown down this well. She survived down there for 7 days. And one of the last
7 days.
visions that she saw before she died was the top of the well, the covering of the well being pushed on top of it, which reveals with the light from above a large ring.
Mm-hmm.
So that was the last thing she saw
Yep.
before she passed away on the 7th day.
I will be honest. When I saw that, the lid come over and I saw the ring, I'm like, oh,
Well,
I,
that's what we're
I
talking
forgot
about.
the
It's pretty
whole
cool.
movie.
Right.
Yeah.
Solve it. So yeah, so you solved it the same exact time she did. You guys, great job. Good. So ultimately here as an audience, in true movie formula fashion, we've solved it. We've figured it all out. We figured the story out. She pulls Samara out of the water. Samara looks like she did normally, and then slowly starts to fade away. And she's just holding a bunch of bones, which is cute.
Yeah.
You know, um,
It's a little more than a bunch of bones.
it's a
Like,
whole skeletal body. Yeah.
It's a whole space.
Noah's up above, like, Rachel, everything okay down there? And she just slowly lets the bones go. And she's like, yeah, pretty much, she investigated one of the biggest mysteries. So they're finally out of the well, and they're hanging out a little bit, chatting about all the craziness that just happened. She says something along the lines of, she just wanted to be heard. So
Yeah,
Samara did all of this stuff just because she wanted to be heard. She drew pictures. She tried to
right.
tell people things. She burned the images in their head. So after
Hmm.
her death, she used that power, the supernatural powerful force to keep sharing her story, which unfortunately would cause death for people who didn't share her story.
Didn't listen, yeah. They give her a burial, which they think is the end,
Mhm.
right?
So yeah,
Yeah, they
so
think that's
everything,
it.
yep, everything's included. We're all happy. Rachel has made it her seventh day. She's good, solved the crime. Everyone's at peace. Samara can live forever. And all right, Lauren, we find out that there's a little bit more to the story to be told here.
A little
And
bit more. I
what
paused it at this point and I was like, there's 20 minutes left, so something's happening.
you're like, wait,
That is not the end. That
yeah,
was too, that tied up real nicely.
yeah, yeah. And again, going back to normal movie formula, especially horror. Scream taught us well, but there's always one last scare that we didn't know was going to happen.
Hmm.
So we wake up in the morning. Rachel obviously is alive. She's on her eighth day, and she's cuddling in bed with Aiden. And this is the first time we see that mother-son connection all the way through. And
Hmm.
we're like, oh, another happy ending.
Right?
All of a sudden, Aiden gets real creeped out, and he says, "You weren't supposed to help her." And
You were
Rachel's
not
like,
supposed
"What are you talking about? But she's not going to hurt you anymore." Aiden then gets a nosebleed, and he says, "She never sleeps."
She never, don't you understand, Rachel?
Don't you understand,
Rachel,
Rachel? I will be an attorney one day. You better understand.
she never sleeps.
Yeah, so now as an audience, we're like, oh shit, okay. Something else is about to happen. We cut to Noah, and
Yep.
again, true movie fashion. Now we're to another scene, and all this stuff is boiling up. He's sitting in his apartment and he's drinking coffee, and just like my cup yesterday, he pulls his coffee mug up. Oh, I'm gonna be haunted for the rest of my life. He pulls his coffee mug up. I'm showing you my cup.
Yeah.
Uh, he pulls his coffee mug up that was sitting on top of newspaper, and there's a perfect ring, just like the bottom of his cup,
Perfect ring.
just
Yep.
like the well that Samara died in. And the TV in the background turns on static
Hmm.
electricity, static television. He turns it off, it turns back on. The telephone rings. Now we're on that last scene of the video that we have been seeing.
Hmm.
We
The
zoom in,
well. Yep.
and now it keeps going. It always has stopped with Samara slowly coming out of the well, and it just ends. But now
Yes.
we're seeing more of it, and Samara's actually pulling herself fully out of the well and walking closer and closer and closer to the screen. We cut to Rachel, who is driving very fast, trying to get to Noah's house, calling him over and over again, which is why the telephone's ringing in his apartment. And just then,
Hmm.
as the television is bleeding water, Samara starts to come out of the television,
The
fully
iconic
out.
Rick.
The
Yes. Fully
iconic
on.
moment. Yes.
Yes.
She walks over to him, she scares him. Um, he falls backwards, she gets closer and closer, and we cut back to Rachel, who's finally at the apartment. She runs up the stairs. There's blood on the floor. Noah's sitting facing away from her in his chair. She walks over to him slowly, turns it, and screams in panic, just
Yeah.
like the mom did when she discovered Katie at the beginning.
Yeah.
We don't see what she
Yes.
sees, though. Not yet.
Not yet.
Not yet. Rachel is,
Not yet.
obviously very upset. She leaves the apartment. She heads back home. She's distressed. She doesn't quite understand why was she spared and why did he die. It's just
Hmm.
then she realizes, and we as an audience slowly zoom into what the possible answer could be, and it's the copied tape that she made that she shared.
Yep.
Um,
Because she made a copy.
yep. So she got spared because she shared Samara's story. She copied
Yep.
that videotape, and now it's being passed along. So she's spared because she shared Samara's story. She
Mm-hmm.
puts all the pieces together. We get clips from the video, clips from the storyline of Samara. They talk about, we use some dialogue from Mr. Morgan saying she won't stop. And Rachel says out loud, I made a copy. She then decides, I'm going to make Aiden copy the tape as well so he can survive. And he copies it. That's it. And the very last line of the movie, do you remember what it is?
I don't, but I know that they were talking about what happens to the person who watches
Yep.
this tape.
Yeah, like how morbid. So she's basically like, we copied this
Yeah,
tape, I'm saving you. And
saving his son
yeah, so Aiden's like,
from
okay,
the
that's
library.
cool. Yeah, Aiden's like, that's cool. But then his intuition steps in and he says, well, what about the person that we show it to?
Yeah.
What happens to them? Rachel
Mm-hmm.
looks at him with panic, looks back to the television like, oh, fuck. We then see
Yeah.
the videotape one last time of the well. It turns to static. We get a real quick flash of a bunch of scenes very quickly with some crazy sound effects, and we cut to black. And that is
Yeah.
The Ring.
It's the ring.
Oh, so Lauren, that was this was a little bit deeper of a movie that we went over this time. Like I mentioned earlier,
Yeah.
the first two movies, definitely had a little bit more adventure and comedy and sillier things to talk about. This was definitely a lot deeper. So what are your final thoughts on The Ring?
So, like I said before, when I saw this movie, I was terrified. I think I really focused in on like the horror aspects of it,
Mhm.
being I was probably like what, 15 at the time. Watching it again, I was like, this is not scary. There's a story here.
Mhm.
Like I totally missed that there was a story. And from what I remembered of The Ring, I was like, oh, it's all like jump scares. And that's what I remembered. So I was pleasantly surprised that there was like a background and a story to it. So I, oh God, you're going to hate me for this comment. I think I might like it more than Scream.
All right, I'm gonna turn this off now and gonna head out. Um, it was good knowing you for the past 8 years. I hope you do well in life. No, I'm just kidding. No, no, no. I mean, I get it, and I was actually. I feel like I say this each time. I'm very excited to see how you react to these movies because
Um,
I do feel like I do feel like you would be either side of the opinion. Does that make sense? I feel
yeah.
like with this movie, I was like, is she going to think it's too scary? Or I was hoping that you would see it as how I view it. Like, it's a good movie.
Yeah. Yeah.
It's not a perfect movie, but it's a good movie.
It's not a perfect movie. There were some points that I was like, you know, frustrated a little bit
Mhm.
and sad for the horse. Um,
It would have been a 10 out of 10 for you if that horse just didn't make that leap.
God, yes.
Ah, that
Where they
horse.
rescued him somehow. But no, I really enjoyed it. Yeah, for some reason, I was like, this is just a jump scare movie. It frightened me for so long when I was younger that I was like, I'm not gonna like this. This is definitely not for me. I was terrified going into watching this movie. Terrified. And honestly, I feel like it is probably inspired a lot of the TV and the movies that we watch today. And a lot of the TVs and movie I watch today, I'm able to handle now. And um, like it's like Jawbreaker. 15-year-old Lauren did not appreciate this movie,
Yeah.
but now I can appreciate it. And honestly, like we're all a little desensitized
Hmm.
these
Absolutely,
days.
for sure. For sure.
Oh,
Yeah. Well, good. I'm glad that you enjoyed it. Like I said, I think it's a really good movie. It's not perfect. It has the right amount of horror to it. This is the type of horror
mhm,
movie that I really enjoy. Some people nowadays, this movie had a lot of great reactions when it came out.
mhm,
Nowadays, the reaction's very 50-50. A lot of
mhm.
people younger than us think that this movie is very boring. I think they read up on it and it's like jump scare and some scariest moments. Like this film the film was known for the actual ending scene with Samara coming out of the well, coming out of the television, and killing him. But it's very pulled back. It leaves a lot to the imagination. Like we don't see these people die per se. We see the aftermath. We see the dread leading up to it. Where nowadays people, and even again back in the 80s and 90s, like we would witness the actual deaths. We would witness the blood and the guts and things like that. And this definitely played a lot more, leaned a lot more into the psychological side of it all.
Yeah.
And the
I'm finding that I thought I hated that,
Mhm.
but I'm finding that the type of scary movie that I like is actually a psychological, the ones with the story, the ones with like a little bit more to them and not just like, you know, those, scare tactics.
Yeah,
That's what you'd say.
yeah, no, absolutely. That's my favorite type of horror film is the horror film that has that slow dread throughout the entire movie, throws in a couple of scares here and there. We actually recently watched this movie called Immaculate. Have you heard of it?
No.
Okay. We watched it, and I heard great things about it, and we watched it, and it to me was 100% old school horror movie vibes. They would lead up to scenes that were going to be stereotypical jump scenes, but then they wouldn't happen, and you were like, oh.
Hmm.
But then right when you're like super comfortable with it, they're like, just kidding, here you go, and you're like, oh shit, like it actually gets you because I feel
Yeah.
like they did a really good job of playing on that, and I feel like The Ring, which is what set it apart at the time, kind of did the same exact thing. It didn't
Mm.
rely on those jump scares. They were there, but it was about the story. It was about the dread. I think the cinematography, that green hue that's in the film, just added those layers to it too, and you just kind of felt uncomfortable through the whole thing. So.
Yeah.
But what do you rate The Ring on a scale of 1 to 10? 10 being the greatest movie ever made, and 1 being if I ever have to watch or hear this, I will jump off a boat just like the horse.
No, do not bring up the horse
Wait, did you say
again.
Noah? Why are you bringing Noah up?
I can't, the horse. Well, um, I would say, okay, what did I give Scream?
You gave Scream
I
a
don't know.
6. I'm so mad at you for it.
I will give The Ring a 7.
Okay, perfect. What did you give Jawbreaker? I don't remember what you gave Jawbreaker.
I
Or did
think
I
it was
not
like an
ask you that
8.
question? Okay,
I think it was 8. Yeah.
cool. Um,
What about you?
for The Ring, I'd say 7.5. Yeah.
Nice. Solid 7.5.
Yeah, solid 7.5. 7.6 if we're gonna be real picky. I'm just kidding. Yeah, no, I definitely like the movie a lot. I watched it twice within the past week before we did this, so
Mhm.
want to definitely get the vibes all around for it. And yeah, one last thing that I have to say, my closing statement. While watching this, I actually realized, and I think this would be kind of a cool thing to do. Maybe it's in the works. I have no idea, but it came from my mind, so I'm going to share it. I think that this would be a great mini series on like HBO or something.
Yes.
So my idea of it would be 8 or 9 episodes, 7 of the
Mhm.
episodes being focused on each day.
Yeah.
And you're very slowly, like the first episode could be like the build up of the story is, and then episodes 2 through 8 would be the 7 days that everything's happening. And then you would have like the final episode that sums everything up and gives us your one last jump scare.
Yeah.
Like, I think that would work amazing. I think it'd be pretty cool. I think people would actually watch it. I think there'd be an audience for it. You would be able to like flesh out the story more. Since
I
the
agree with that.
Yeah, I think that'd be fun. So HBO, if you're listening, my name's
HBO.
Dave Herman.
Um, yeah, I will say that I think a lot of the reasons why I don't watch a lot of movies is because I feel like the stories aren't fleshed out enough.
Hmm.
I
No,
don't
I
know.
get that.
I just love, yeah. So but it's been like awesome, watching movies and having an appreciation for them. And
Yeah.
yeah, but
Hell
yeah,
yeah.
I agree with you that I wanted more of the story,
Yeah.
which I think I'm going to watch The Ring too. I know you haven't seen it, but I'm going to watch it.
Well, how about this? We won't do a podcast on it, but how about you watch it and then you tell me what you like about it. I'll watch it and then we'll have a personal one-on-one conversation about it.
Okay.
Okay.
Yeah.
Um, and then viewers, if you're listening and you want us to make a video of The Ring 2, we will. Just kidding. Um, cool. All right. Well, thanks for watching The Ring. Do you have anything else to say about it?
She never sleeps.
She never sleeps.
I
And
never sleep.
just like you back in the day, you didn't sleep at all after you watched it
I did
either.
not sleep for 7 days.
But
Yeah.
I'm glad that you're sleeping well, and I hope you don't get a phone call after this that tells you
You are gonna
seven
call me. I
days.
already
You know,
know
I
it.
thought about it. I actually, for the listeners out there, I like to prank Lauren a lot, and I was actually gonna have Zach block his number and give you a phone call while we were doing
Mm,
this, and I
were
was gonna have him
you?
keep calling you until you said something like, "Oh, I gotta answer this phone call," or something weird. I'd just be like, "Answer it, it's fine." So, but I
Whoa.
didn't know if you'd go through with it or you'd just, be polite and be like, "I don't want to answer this because we're doing this." So, but boo.
Yes. Yes. I get scared easily, so.
Well, Lauren, thanks for conquering your fears and watching The Ring. I'm glad you
Yes.
enjoyed it, and I'll probably catch you on another episode of The Reaction Shot.
Of course.
So, well,
Welcome back.
have a good night, have a good day. Whatever's happening. Have fun. I hope you get to make it the next 7 days after this.
Dave. Okay, I will.
What's up behind you?
Stop it. Stop it. It's
I'm
my
just kidding.
cat.
All right. Well, you have fun, and thanks again for doing this. I appreciate you. Cool.
Appreciate you.
All right. Bye, guys.